And we're out. So, good afternoon. Welcome to session 2 of the Results Rules OK planning workshop. Last week, we did all the strategic options and choices. This week, we're looking at gap analysis, change management, options and leadership, and some mindset work as well. So, welcome everybody. There's some people returning back. We've got a good bunch on the call from all over the world again. So what I'm going to do is I'm just muting everybody on the call to make sure that everybody doesn't get disrupted, and do a quick intro. So for those who don't know us or are watching this on catch up or something like that, we are based in France. This is the home office in France as we're on lockdown. Offices in Luxembourg as well, just outside Schengen where the agreement was signed. We have clients in 35, 36 countries now, and I call myself the business co-pilot. I sit alongside my clients, helping them grow and build their businesses. And we've got a very broad range of people on the call today as well. And you can find us at resultsrulesok.com. You can find me on LinkedIn as well to find out more information. The reason for the workshop, really, how we've adapted the content from session 1 and now for session 2 as well, is what we're looking at is how do we beat this virus thing. And I think since we spoke last week, there's been some encouraging news about the virus being removed. And that's not talking about anything to do with Donald Trump over in the US. Of course, this is the vaccine that may be coming out. There's several vaccines now coming onto the market. And by the look of it, in early part of next year, vaccines will be available. And I thought it was really interesting to see that the guys I think it was in Germany, they developed this vaccine and it was 90% successful, which is really good for a vaccine. And the day after, the Russians came out and said they've got a vaccine as well that was 92% effective, so a bit better than the European one, but still. So that's what we're looking at. How do we beat the virus in our businesses? What are we going to do differently? What's our strategy going to be? How do we plan for next year and what is going to be an equally uncertain year next year? But we can do things right now to ensure ourselves and insulate ourselves against it. As a bit of a refresher for everybody, but those who maybe weren't here last week as well, is we've got to do something different, because if we do what we've always done, the mantra was we get what we've always got. Those rules don't apply anymore. It's a different situation, different scenario. If we do what we've always done, we're going to get less than we always got. So we've got to do something different. We've got to choose a different path, a different strategy for ourselves. So that's what we're looking at. So we covered off some strategic choices last week. As a review of last week, as just a refresh and a reminder, what we looked at last week was what's the goal? And we're going to touch on this again this week. I was having a discussion literally earlier on today. Doesn't matter who it's with, but it was a client over in the UK. And we're talking about goal setting, and in the business we've got some very ambitious goals. And the question is, are the goals that we set ourselves, are they limitations on the growth of the business as well? Do we limit the ability of our business to grow based on the goals that we set? Because the goals that we have when we run our own business, like most of us guys do, our goals are based on our perception, what our personal needs are, what do we want to have in our life and our lifestyles. So the goal we set in business, all it needs to be is what I call an appropriate goal. There's always, people can make millions of pounds or euros or have a multi-international global company. Well, great. If you really want that and that suits your personal lifestyle and family needs, well, great. Yeah, go for it. Most people in my experience, they don't really want to have a multi-billion whatever dollar thing. They want to have a good business, runs that feeds them, they have a nice lifestyle, it runs, they get the time they want, nice holidays, nice things, it's growing, it's developing, keeps them interested, and they build a nice lifestyle. So it really depends, what is the goal, what is your personal goal as well, and it starts with that. There's always somebody out there who's got a bigger car or a bigger vision or a bigger bank account or a bigger boat or a bigger plane or something like that. Don't worry about what other people are doing. It's just got to do with yourselves. I remember some years ago, one of my clients, I do tell this story quite a lot, so forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but one of my clients, his goal was to have a Ferrari. He wanted a Ferrari, and he got a Ferrari 430. And it was a beautiful, beautiful car. We got the car, and we went down to Le Mans, and not to race, to observe. And we're in the car park, and we were there. I'm not sure what car. I think we had a Honda S2000. Anyway, nice little sports car. He had his Ferrari. We were parked next to him, and of course, in the car park, people are flocking around the Ferrari, not looking at the Honda. They're looking at the Ferrari. Amazing. He loved this. This was just amazing for him. It just validated his decision of getting this amazing car. And then about 20 minutes later, a guy pulled up in a Bugatti Veyron, and this thing just pulled into the car park and parked opposite. And everybody who was looking at Chris's Ferrari went, I forgot. They just turned left and went down towards the Bugatti. Don't be put off by something bigger and brighter that somebody else has got. If you're happy with the Ferrari or the Honda S2000 or whatever it is, if you're happy with that, that's all it is. But be clear on the goal, the personal goal, and we translate that into professional and business goals as well. We looked at the pestle analysis, political, economic, social, technical. We looked at all those things there, and this gives us a framework, because in the environment right now, of the last 12 months, or since about March the 15th, everything has changed. Society has changed. The economy has changed. The legal framework has changed, and it's dramatically different. We're going to go into a very different year next year, in a positive way for lots of things, I think, as well. But review the whole environment before you make your choice. We looked at the SWOT analysis, and Angela, I'll resend it for Angela. My apologies, it didn't get through. But look at your strengths and weaknesses. What are the opportunities you face, and what are the threats? We had a conversation this morning with a fabulous team over in the UK within a franchise group, and we were just looking at opportunities, and there are opportunities everywhere if you look for them. If you decide to make them real, there's more opportunities that you can shake a stick at, literally, and that they come from very strange places. But this SWOT analysis is a great way of compartmentalizing your business. Where do you need to point yourselves? Where do you need to look for these opportunities as well? Market forces from Porter, where are the market forces from new entrants and existing people, and the buyers and the sellers, all this type of thing. Who's got the influence in your market? We looked at making strategic choices. And interesting, some of the conversations following on, some of the comments were, well, we've made the choice now. We're looking at expansion. We're looking at franchising, for example. And one of the things to consider is, even if you don't franchise your business, and this is another conversation from earlier on today, which I find really helpful for me anyway, is even if you're not going to franchise your business, pretend you are. Build it as if it's a franchise, because even if you don't sell franchises, you can duplicate it much more easily. If it's systemized and structured, you can duplicate it whether you franchise it or not. So maybe franchising as a mindset as well as a physical strategy is a great way to go. And then we looked at the strategy clock, and this popped up several times about what are our choices about value and pricing. Where do you want to be in this pricing model? Do you want to be the cheap end of the spectrum? Do you want to be at the very expensive end of the spectrum? And the answer is likely, hopefully, more towards the expensive or the value end of the spectrum, because in what we do, we don't have a global brand. We're not Aldi, we're not Lidl, we're not Tesco's. We are not really competing on price. People don't buy on price. I mean, if people think that people buy on price, well, they only do if we let them. If we let them buy on price, they will. We can avoid that by either selecting our target market or offering fabulous value that is valued higher than the price we're charging. And in my experience, if providing the value is higher than the price, the deal is done. Or perceived value is higher than the price, the deal is done. So you can choose your strategy here. But for most of us, we've got to be in that high value and high price, high margin sector. Other strategies, for knowing you as I do, most people on the conversation here, you're in the service sector, high added value. We've got to have good, strong margins as well. So just consider that when you come to your pricing. So by now, we should have this sort of clarity around broadly where you're going to point yourselves. And now we look at that, and then for the purposes of today, what we're going to look at is, well, what's the gap? And it's called gap analysis. It's pretty obvious what it is, but the academics call it gap analysis. It's just looking at so what basically is, what's the 2021 objective? Where do you want to be this time next year? What's the vision? What's the dream? What's the goal? What's the objective for next year? And what happens if we don't do anything different? And therefore there's going to be a gap. So this gap analysis basically has to be filled with strategic options to get where you want to go. It's simple. All we've got to do is how do we get there? And I think the thing that's different this time around, this year specifically, if I just go back a couple of slides, is just repeating what happened last year or the year before doesn't work. You know, a lot of people they tell me they've got 20 years experience in business, and that's true. What they've actually got is 1 year's experience 20 times, and every year is a photocopy. It's the same as last year, the same, and they get really destabilized when the environment changes. In a good, strong market, which we've had since 2008, the last 10, 12 years, been pretty good, been a bull markets out there. Well, most businesses have done okay, not because they're good, but because the tide is rising. A rising tide lifts all boats. Now we've got to be more creative and more specific to cope through these things that are going on. So what we're looking at is strategic options. As a reminder again, it is literally all about you. It really is all about you, your mindset. And Gareth, who's on the call today, I'm not going to say who we had a conversation with last night, but anyway, we had a conversation last night, quite a strange conversation, actually, in a good way, with a very well-known guy. He's a fabulously wealthy. I think I'm told he's a billionaire. He wanted to talk to us. So Gareth and I are on this call, and he's just got an amazing mindset. He was like, God, it was 10 o'clock last night, pretty much. And it was just like, wow, where's this conversation going? But one of the things that he said, it was all about mindset. No, it wasn't Trump. No, it wasn't Trump. No, it was a pity. But it was really one of the things that he said, and I'll tell you privately, but not for for public consumption, I suppose, was it's all to do with mindset and attitude, all to do with mindset and attitude, all these opportunities that are there. It reminded me of it's got to be down to us. So what we're looking at today is about how do we get ourselves to be okay with doing something different. And I'm going to go back in time to when I was 17 years old, which is about 83 years ago now, I think, or feels like it. But anyway, I'm down in London. I've left home, a 17-year-old kid. I'm on an apprenticeship scheme, and I was earning back then, I think it was £30 a week, which is very similar than I earn now, actually, thinking about it. But £30 a week. And back then, I was living in digs, in this sort of a shared house, a horrible place, and going to my training, my apprenticeship during the day. Now, the rent for these digs was £30 a week, which meant I couldn't afford to eat. I couldn't afford to have any heating, couldn't afford to travel, could do nothing, but I had to have an address there to have the training. And so what I used to do was I jump on the last train in. We were in Enfield in North London. Get on the last train in from Enfield, or what was then, it's called Ponders End if you Google it. Ponders End, train into London, into Liverpool Street, and because it was so cold in the winter of 1980 that I couldn't get to go somewhere, I'd freeze to death. So I could get on the train, go into Liverpool Street, and I'd go and try and scavenge around for some food or something. And then I'd sleep on the train. And that train, the last train in at night, was the first train out in the morning. And I'd get off from the train and then go to the factory and do my training. And what I found was that when you hang out on Liverpool Street Station regularly in the evenings, you meet all sorts of interesting people. And I got to know, the homeless guys, the hookers who came down from Suffolk and this thing for the weekends and during the week, all the working girls. And I just got to know these people, some very tragic cases. And we got to know where you could get food from. So one of the things we used to do, in hindsight, as a 17-year-old, it scares me to death. But anyway, we go to there's a charity food shelter run by the Red Cross down at King's Cross. So we get to Liverpool Street, we go down to King's Cross Station, go to the charity food shelter, and you could have free food, which was pie and mash and beans and that sort of thing, and a big cup of a mug of tea. You could have free food if you had drug counselling. Well, I couldn't afford the food, let alone the drugs. So I never took any drugs. I never did that. I never touched any of them. But I had to make out that I was taking something, and I'd sort of stab myself with a compass in the arm, or rub some sandpaper on my arm and make it look like I was doing something. And then so I had counselling for all sorts of drugs, methamphetamines, PCPs, all these bizarre Purple Hearts, whatever. Very interesting stuff. Anyway, that was my life for a while. And as a 17-year-old kid left home, that was quite sort of bizarrely exciting, interesting for a first a couple of weeks, couple of months. Then I realized I was getting stuck in this blooming trap. How do you get out of it? Because there was like no end to this thing. And it's not intended as a sob story, but it was just, it was one of those things that I got myself stuck into this situation and I couldn't get out of it. And one evening I was going from Ponders End Station into Liverpool Street. And back then on the trains, back in the old days, they didn't have corridors down them. They were just cubicles, and there were sort of 5 seats there, 5 seats here, doors either side. You get in, you sit down, you get off. But you couldn't walk down the corridor. There were commuter trains. So I'm sat there. It's about 10:30 at night, and we got to I think it was Tottenham Hale or Seven Sisters station, and stopped. And this guy got on. He opened the door, jumped in. He put his briefcase down and put his newspaper down, this sort of thing. Then he turned round. There's the trains pulling out the station, and he saw me. And of course, he's locked in. He's locked in his cubicle. I'm there in Italian army trousers, safety boots, a little bomber jacket. I haven't had a wash for 3 or 4 days. Not a pretty sight. Skinhead haircut. And all, and he's under no threat for me at all, no threat at all. But he looks very, very nervous. He's there in his little nice suit and shirt and tie. He had his little Filofax. Remember then, the Filofax diary things, very, very precious to him. Anyway, he to break the ice, he wants to make conversation because he just feels, he's locked in this cubicle with me. And he said, "Oh, where are you off to?" And I said, rightly, I'm off to London for dinner. Which I was. I didn't tell him exactly how. Anyway, we got to chatting. I said to him, what are you doing? Where are you going? And he was being relocated from a company up in Leeds, I think it was. He'd been moved by his company down to London, and he'd been looking at property. He wanted to get a house. They were going to fund a house for him. They'd funded the move, and he'd been promoted. He was working in the city in London for a bank or something like that. And he was only about 25, 28 years old, I suppose, only a young man, if you like. I remember I sat there and I said to him, he was opposite to me now, and I said, how do I go from this side of the train compartment to your side? How do I get to sit where you sit? Because this side really sucks. This was not, it wasn't going well. And he looked at me, and the train was slowing down to come into its stop, the one he was going to get off at and jump on the tube and go somewhere else. We had about 10 seconds left of the journey, for him at least. And he looked at me, he said, look, he said, there's opportunity everywhere. All you've got to do is look for opportunity, recognize it, and when it comes along, say yes and go for it. Just go for it. Whatever it is, say yes, go for it and figure it out. Don't be scared. Don't be fearful. Go for the opportunity. Even if you don't think you can do it, go for it and you'll be great. You'll be fine. And with that, he picked up his little Filofax thingy and his briefcase and his fancy raincoat, and off he went. And I'm sat there on the train going down to Liverpool Street. And I thought, that it's got to be more to it than that. That can't be, that's not right. Anyway, so about 2 or 3 weeks went by, and I'm in the factory now, and there's about 35 of us in my intake, the apprentice intake, and we were working alongside the military. We weren't in the military, we worked alongside them. They were our customers, basically. And so one day, it happened, some brigadier, colonel, general guy turned up, wanted to do an inspection of all the factory and everything like that. And they lined us up, all us apprentices, they lined us up against a wall, a bit concerning. And this guy came along, he said, it always reminds me, I mean, maybe Gareth knows this better than I do, but these military guys, beyond a certain rank, they always call people chaps, not guys and men, it's just chaps. So he's morning chaps. And he said, I'm looking for a volunteer. And there's 35 of us against this wall. He said, I'm looking for a volunteer. Now, if you're anything to do with, even mildly associated with the military or anything like that, you're taught never, ever volunteer for anything, because it involves, cleaning the toilets or painting grass green or doing something crazy. Anyway, but I thought back then to the guy said on the train, there was this is it. Is this the opportunity? Is this it? So I stood forwards. I stepped forwards from these other apprentices. Now you can imagine, once somebody steps away from the pack, away from the herd, the rest of the apprentices all started, what do you do? I won't say what they actually said, but they said, what are you doing? Who do you step back in line? Don't break the code. Don't leave. Don't volunteer. I just stood my ground, and I was sort of walked off with him and this sort of thing onto this special project, which I can't tell you about. Well, I can, but I've got to kill you. But anyway, this special project. And then what happened from there was about a week later, I'm called into the office again by the same guy. I was working in his team, this special project thing. And he just said to me, he said, he called me Holland then. So he said, Holland, what's going on? You know, I said, what do you mean what's going on? He said, you stink. Because I couldn't get access to a shower or anything, maybe once every few days. And he sorted it out. Turns out that I was paying emergency tax on my wages. I should have been getting more money than that. He took me to the wages office, getting paid in cash then, got it sorted out, got backdated money, a big envelope of cash, literally nearly £1,000 in cash back then, which was huge. That was amazing. And got paid my rent, moved apartments, got myself back on track, and life became good, and off we went. And the rest is sort of history. But if I hadn't have volunteered and done something uncomfortable, I may not have broken out of that pattern. So the reason for the story is that in business now, for all of us, we've got to do things that are unusual, uncomfortable, that we're going to feel strange about. So it is all about you, but it's all about the mindset that you bring. And you've got to do something different. You've got to get uncomfortable. You've got to be someone different as well. And you've got to take the risk of letting go of what happened in the past. And fundamentally, we don't like risk. We don't like uncertainty. We're hardwired against it. So when we're sat now looking at what does next year look like, we've got to be something different. We've got to do something different in order to have something different. We've got to be okay with letting go of stuff and taking the risk. And number of people who and sometimes I see this where, maybe I'll have a conversation with somebody and about their business or their job or their career or something like that. And they'll go, no, I'm good. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to think about it. I'm not going to start a program or anything like that. I'm going to think about it. And I go, what are you going to think about? And what are you going to think about? Are you actually going to think about not doing it, or are you just thinking that I don't want to bother and can't be bothered with it? And too many people, in my experience, spend a lot of time thinking about it, whatever it is. And what it actually is, it's never the program or the product or the investment. It's the change. It's making the change. That's what makes things tough for us. So the reason we are risk averse, if you like, and you can consider this in terms of what you're thinking about now, and it applies to all of us, me included. I feel very nervous at the moment, having bought this house up north, and we've fitted the kitchen to it now. But anyway, all these sort of things, I'm still nervous, but I'm going to make it happen anyway. So the reason is we are pattern seekers. We look for patterns. We look for regularity. And what it means is, or where it comes from, if you imagine that in the old days, our ancestors, walking through the savannah in somewhere in Africa or whatever it is, we're walking through the savannah and trudging around, and we hear a rustling in the grass, in the leaves, in the trees. Now, what do we instinctively think that is? If you're walking along somewhere and you hear a rustling in the grass, what do you think it is? Well, likely you're going to avoid it rather than run into it, because it could be something that's going to hurt you or harm you. And I asked this question of a big organization in Luxembourg. I said, okay, look, you're in Africa, walking across the savannah, whatever it is, and you hear some rustling in the grass somewhere. What do you think it is? And one of the guys said, could be a kangaroo. And I said, no, it can't. No, wrong continent. It can't be a kangaroo. And another guy said it could be a tiger. It's like, guys, it can't be a tiger. Tigers are Indian, not anyway. You're in Africa. No, it could be a lion. Yeah, it could be a lion. It could be something that's going to kill you. So what happens is we have this hardwired response into ourselves. When we see something that is, or hear something that is uncertain, we can't clarify it, we're not sure what it is. It's like a code. We avoid it because it's safer to do that. If we avoid the movement, even though it might be a child who needs some help, it could be lunch, it could be anything. But if we avoid it, we reduce the risk of being eaten by a kangaroo, by something that's dangerous. So we avoid risk. Where we perceive risk, we're hardwired to avoid it. And the challenge we face in business is we can't do that. We've got to look at something and go, it doesn't sound certain. It looks risky, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to crack on with it. I'm going to take the risk, jump off the cliff and hope for the best, and the net will appear. But that's why it feels uncomfortable doing these things. That's why, and anybody in sales will know this, is that when you have meetings with people, they'll go, yeah, let me think about it. Well, they're not going to think about what you've said. They're not going to think about that. What they're going to think about is, thank goodness I'm going to take the risk of doing something different, which may or may not be in their best interests, but it's just they're hardwired to think in that way. So when we're looking at the change or making this positive change, there are 4 states of change that I work with and I use and I sort of visualize, if you like, that you can sort of work on as well. So the 4 states of change are based on this chart, and it's based on certainty at the top, uncertainty at the bottom, negativity on the one side, and positivity on the other side. So imagine if you've got a situation, a decision to make, and you're going to make the decision, or an investment or a job or a career or whatever it is, your decision to make, and you have absolute certainty, and it's positive. You're happy, off you go. It's guaranteed success. It all looks good. You've done all the check-in, positive certainty, happy, away you go. Life is good, all is fine. Most things in life aren't like that, of course. Most decisions aren't like that, because if you have something that is to you might be positive, but it's uncertain, still uncertainty there. And you can think about this with the vaccine that's coming out for us now, for the COVID vaccine. It's a very, very positive thing. I mean, I assume absolutely fine. It's great, very positive thing. But when we're going to get it, what are the side effects going to be? Who's going to get it first? What's going to happen? All this sort of thing. I mean, if you look at the conspiracy theorists on Facebook, these injections are going to include, little microchips that we can be zapped with by lasers from space and all this. It's all rubbish. It's all rubbish. Don't worry about it. But there's uncertainty. That just leads to anxiety. So even though it's positive, degrees of uncertainty deliver the emotional state of anxiety. Now, if you're anxious about something, because we're emotional beings, we're not going to go for it if we're going to be anxious. The next one would be negative uncertainty. So I think now Donald Trump's in this state right now over in the US. There's negativity out there. Has he lost the election? We're not really sure just yet. He's under a lot of stress. Probably Biden's under a lot of stress as well. I'm not going to talk about politics at all, but a lot of stress. Negative uncertainty equals stress. This happens in business as well with your teams. And we'll touch on that. How do you sell this to your teams as well? If you've got negative uncertainty in a team, the team will be stressed in a negative way. They just will be. Now, if you've got something that is negative, but you're sure it's negative, you know it's negative, well, that's clarity. You just walk away and leave them to it. Now, what you're looking for is how do I manage these states: happy, anxious, stressful, and clarity, negative clarity. And we go through a cycle of it. But the trick is we want as much certainty and as much positivity as we can. So when you're looking at building this strategy for yourselves, that's when we look at knowledge. We look at people who can help and support you. You look at people in your network, your accountants, your coach, your lawyer, your family. You need that level of support. The more certainty you get, the more positivity you get, the more happy you're going to be. If you go into a year next year with negative uncertainty, then you've got no chance. But between negative uncertainty and positive certainty is just a choice. It's just a mindset. It's how we approach things. Excuse me, not COVID. You're okay, not COVID. And I've seen this, in the martial arts sector, for example. There's a few martial artists on the call today, and they know this, that when the lockdown came, some martial artists went, that's it, can't do this, we're shutting down, fire everybody, shut down, bring the barriers down, we're gone. Other martial artists went, well, you know what, we don't like it, we're going to pivot, we're going to do what we can, use Zoom, we're going to change our curriculum, we're going to get our instructors involved. And many of the martial artists now are ahead of where they were pre-lockdown. Other ones weren't. They're shut and gone and will never open again. Now, who's right? It's just the mindset. So certainty, positivity, the happy gene, if you like, That's where we need to be for you guys when you're looking at your strategy for the next 12 months. So when you're looking at the quadrants that you want to be in, where the quadrants you're going to operate in, the more certainty and positivity you have, the better. The other quadrants don't serve you or your team, because if you've got a team of people and you as leader, and we're going to come on to leadership a little bit later on, you don't sell them the dream. They don't feel certain. They don't feel confident. They're going to feel stressed. And when they're stressed, their performance goes down and they start to panic. And there's enough going on in the world right now without this. So we need to have this positive certainty, but we're hardwired not to. So when you're looking at making a decision, working with somebody, or getting a book and reading it, or implementing a strategy, remember your instinct is to avoid. It's a rustling in the grass, and it's to keep you safe. And I'm not suggesting you just say yes to everything, even though the movie said that. Don't say yes to everything, but do some research. Be prepared to feel uncomfortable. You've got to be in this quadrant, because that quadrant is what enables you to feel comfortable with the move and the change. And when you start doing it, you're going to be absolutely fine. I learned my lesson when I was 17 years old in that carriage with that guy. He just said to me, say yes, volunteer, look for opportunities, say yes, even if you don't think it's going to work. Sometimes, not all the time, sometimes. Say yes and allow it to happen. Allow it to happen. That's when the magic turns up. And in my career and with Lynn in our lives, we've done this a number of times. Regularly, we've done things that other people have gone, "Are you nuts? Buying this house during lockdown. Are you insane? We couldn't even go there for 2 months because we weren't allowed out of the house, and we hadn't seen it for more than 2 minutes. We launched our franchise opportunity, and we have some of the best coaches in the world joining us now on the call today. We're launching a new business venture during lockdown. Must be insane to do that. Absolutely crazy. Yeah, no, we're not. We're doing it with the best intentions, with certainty and positivity. So just be aware these things are going to show up in your mindset and in your life and in your business. It's how you deal with it will define your levels of success. So choose the strategy, absolutely, but don't talk yourself out of it because it sounds like rustling in the grass. Don't talk yourself out of it because it looks a bit scary, a bit unusual. Of course it is. But if you want to be to achieve something significant, you've got to make that leap as well. I've seen it myself. I see it in other people as well, doing the work that I do. And for a number of people on the call, I'm not going to go into details, but I know a lot of you have made these sort of choices and decisions personally and professionally. And it's really scary when you let go of safety and security. But you know what? That's what happens. When you let go, you make things happen, and that's where the magic happens. So I'm going to invite you to go into the first breakout, if that's okay. And I'm going to stop or pause the recording just now. So welcome back from the breakout sessions, and you can see that the slides changed as well. But what I want to talk about now is really this: how do we overcome this inertia? And one of the questions during the break was, the feeling was that this person is setting goals too small, but they're very logical and safe. And the danger in business isn't that we set big goals and don't achieve them. The real danger is we set little goals and hit them. That's the danger, because we get that same sort of positivity or certainty from hitting safe small goals as we do from hitting big ones, but the risk is less. And because we risk avoid, we shoot low, we guarantee we hit it, and we feel good anyway. And that's a real limitation for a lot of us. So Newton's first law, this is like a high school physics lesson, not intended that way, but it'll make sense. But I've used this in terms of the formula for change we went through on the personal development workshop earlier in the summer. So Newton's first law, basically, things keep on moving unless you tell them not to. Things will either remain at rest or in motion unless they are compelled to change by the action of an external force. Either you push it, you kick it, you heat it, you whatever. You need external force. Now, for us as individuals, as humans, same applies to us. We don't like change. We think we do. People say to me, I'm good with change. I like change. I look forward to it. Yeah, you do when you choose it, when you engineer it, when you can guarantee it, and when it doesn't apply to you. That's the sort of change we like. When change applies to other people, it's great. It's when it applies to us, that's when we get stuck on it. So the formula for change, now this is, I've adapted this a little bit. This is how change is, we are affected by external forces. So we have dissatisfaction. Are you unhappy, dissatisfied with your business the way it is, or the results you're getting, the amount of money you're making, the time you have for family? Now, it may be that you're spending too much time with family and you want to spend less time with them. I don't know. Depends who you're married to. But are you dissatisfied with your business? Do you have a vision? What's the vision for the future? What do you want it to look like? Where do you want it to be in the next 12 months, 2 years, 5 years? D times V. But then this C. Now, on the formula for change, as we know, it's actually F for first steps, but I've amended it a bit just because it suits me, suits my style a bit better, is certainty. If I have a high degree of dissatisfaction, a high degree of vision, and a high degree of certainty, that will overcome the levels of resistance to change. So if I'm going to push something over, that's not me, but it's only a picture I could find of somebody pushing against something. I won't be able to move that block simply by having high dissatisfaction and high vision, because if D is 10, highly dissatisfied, I really don't like what I'm doing, and I have a fabulous vision, 10 out of 10. I know what I want. I want the Ferrari. I want whatever it is. Those are 2, 10 times 10. If my level of certainty is 0, i.e., I may have a limiting belief around my ability to achieve it, I may not trust myself to do it. I may not trust others around me. I may not have the support of people in my network or my family or my professional network. If my certainty is 0 or low, 10 times 10 times 0 is still 0. And then the resistance, the wall, if you like, overcomes that. So what we have to do is figure out a way of overcoming that resistance. And the way to do it is build dissatisfaction. Stop tolerating things you know you shouldn't tolerate. We tolerated a Renault Megane for about 2 years longer than we should do or should have done. And it was such a relief to get rid of it. Anyway, that's a separate thing. But get dissatisfied. Don't tolerate stuff. Human beings, my experience, we tolerate too much stuff, because it's like the frog in milk. The temperature grows gradual, and then we turn around and we keel over because we're boiling ourselves. Don't tolerate stuff. Be realistic about what you want, what you're tolerating, what you deserve, and what you don't deserve. And this may be professionally and personally as well. But look for points of dissatisfaction. If you are dissatisfied, if life is perfect, then great, don't change, keep on going, life's good. But if you want to make a positive change, you need to be dissatisfied as well. Having a vision is not enough. You need the D. Be unhappy with things and recognize what they are. Then you have to have V. Vision. What's a vision look like? What's the future look like? What you're going to have? What's the dream board? Where you're going to live? Who you're going to live with? What's the business going to look like? Where's your holiday going to be? I was speaking with one of the clients during the week, and I said to them, "Where's your favorite holiday destination?" And she said, Reunion, which is Reunion in English, but Reunion, it's an island in the Indian Ocean off the coast of Madagascar. I'd never heard of it, actually, never heard of it. Well, that sounds really cool. So I Googled it, and we look on Google Maps. Have a look at it. Not now, because you're supposed to be with me, but look at the island of Reunion in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and just Google it. Have a look at the map, and it is a truly fabulous, amazing place. Then it is in France. It is a French. Yes, it is not strictly in, but part of. Yes, I'm corrected. It is fabulous. It's a French island, so we can all go there because we're French, which is good. But it is a fabulous, fabulous place. And these are the sort of things that, from a vision point of view, have. I'm not recommending Reunion, but I am. But have what you want. Bring it to life. Have it on a dream board, have an image, have a vision for it, book a date in the diary, book the flights, whatever it is, not for now, when we can, book the flights, make it real, bring it to that builds that level of vision and level of certainty. So you hang on to the dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction is a good thing. It's a positive thing, use as fuel. Have the vision, and then build the certainty. Now, how do you build certainty around all this? Well, you have a plan, you have a structure, you have people around you that you can trust. And what I mean by that, if you're going to build an amazing, fabulous business that's going to serve your needs personally, let's say you want to franchise your business or grow or duplicate or develop it on an international basis or just a local basis. You can decide to do it yourself. Absolutely, of course, you can decide to do it yourself. It's like doing DIY, do it yourself. I've learned this lesson. When we looked at the house we're doing, it needed a full, complete rewire throughout, and it needed about I think it's about 32 sockets in these 3-phase electricity, in these new lights putting in all sorts of bizarre stuff putting into it. And I thought, being me, being a bloke, an engineer, if you don't mind, I thought, well, how hard can it be? I'll do it myself. And I went on to Google and had a look at it, got the wiring diagrams, French code for doing wiring. It's horrific. It's absolutely horrific. But by then we'd bought the house, I had no choice. So we hired an electrician. Thank goodness we did, because I would have made a complete hash of it. At some point, you're going to have to bring in the professionals to help you. You can't do it all yourselves. And one of the limitations is, and I see this doing what I do a lot, is you've got to bring people in to help and support you, either within the team to help. They're going to bring people in who can help you, bring outsiders in. If you want to grow your business, speak to your accountants to look at the structure. How are you going to do this? What's the financial implications for it? Speak to your lawyers about legal constraints and contracts, and get someone to come and help you. Get a coach, for goodness sake, who can sit with you and guide you through. If you think you're going to do it yourself, that becomes very scary. So to reduce the levels of uncertainty, get your team around you, get people who can. Is it going to cost us some money to hire good people, to get a great accountant and get your lawyer and get a coach on board? Yeah, it is. Yes. And that's a risk, isn't it? Yeah. Get over it and do it anyway, because that's one of these things about ticking the box of certainty. You have to have certainty, otherwise you won't do it. And it's only money, for goodness sake. So be prepared. What that does, though, then if resistance is the same, pushing back, it doesn't work. What we need to get to is where D times V times C is much bigger than resistance. It overcomes it, therefore it moves, and away we go. That's when we get the change, the shifts. But we need to have dissatisfaction, vision, and certainty. And what we're looking at here in that quadrant for certainty, how can you guarantee certainty? It's the people you surround yourself with. It's the plans, it's the process, it's the systems, it's the software, it's the marketing systems. It's just get some guarantees in place, give yourself the best chance you can. That increases certainty. Then away you go, it reduces the risk, and you'll feel much better about it. So this is really how the formula for change can impact on people. And what that does, and picking up on the question earlier on, setting logical goals, it may be that with a logical goal, it is safe and secure, but maybe you need somebody to bounce it off, or to confide in, or to strategize with, to go, how can we do this? And that would make it okay and become less logical, more creative maybe. But anyway, just me. So how do we make change permanent? Why is change painful? Why is it so blooming traumatic for us to go through change? So following on with my theme of physics, this is, again, not going into much detail here for you, but this is just an interesting mindset around how do we cope with change, but why do we not follow through as well? And if you're in the fitness industry, I was speaking with Lisa Mustard during the week, and I think who's joined us on the call today. So please say hi to Lisa and connect and look at the recording that we did. Absolutely fabulous lady doing great work. Is that in terms of health and well-being, how do you make that permanent? How do you get permanent positive health and well-being? Well, it's not an event, it's a process. You've got to start, it's a continuous thing. You're going to get uncomfortable doing these things. You're going to ache in the mornings if you start doing exercise or whatever it is, and you've got to get used to that. It's going to be uncomfortable. Now, to make change permanent, I want to just reflect on Robert Hooke, who's one of my champions from the high school physics, and he described a thing called Hooke's law, which is all about the extension and tension in springs. But it'll make sense. Just go with me on it. Imagine this is a spring hanging from the ceiling. We hang a weight off that spring, and it stretches the spring. So 1 kilogram weight stretches the spring down a bit, has a stretch, and it stretches a bit. Then we take the spring off, or the weight off that spring, and the spring goes back to where it was. Same length, hasn't stretched, it's okay, back again. Then we add 2 kilos to the spring, 2 kilograms of weight, and then the spring stretches by twice as much. That's Hooke's law, basically, but don't worry about that. Twice the weight, twice the extension. That's how Hooke's law works. You apply twice the pressure, you get twice the movement. Now, what happens there, of course, when we take the weight off that spring, it still goes back to where it was before. So you take the weight off, and then the spring snaps back to where it was before. And it's what is called within its elastic limit. The spring is fine. You stretch it, you compress it, you let go, it goes back to where it was before. That's comfort. And for people, that's what they do. They do a little bit of change. And martial artists, and I'm sure Lisa sees this as well, they dip their toe in the water of fitness or martial arts, and they go to the gym, once or twice, then they figure out that it hurts or aches, or they get a bruise, or they cut their toe or something like that. And they go, no, not doing that. And they snap back to exactly where they were before. The excuse they use was it was painful or uncomfortable or whatever it was. Don't like it, don't enjoy it. Yeah, well, guess what? You're not supposed to enjoy it. You're supposed to break through these things. Same for us in business. Now, to get a spring to stretch and have what we call a permanent change or permanent set, is you've got to go through this elastic limit. And what happens is, let's say you apply a ton, 1,000 kilos to the same spring. The spring goes, it stretches out a lot. Then you take it off. And then when you take the weight off, the spring, it does go back, but it doesn't go back to where it was before. It has permanent change applied to it. It has this set. Same for people. We've got to be prepared to be stretched further than we feel comfortable with. It feels nervous, it's uncertain, we're tense, we're starting to sweat and get palpitations and have the butterflies in the stomach. It's like being married, for goodness sake. But we have this sort of level of stress. We've got to be able to recognize it as a rite of passage. It's one of those things, because when we go through that, and then we come out the other side, the pressure's taken off, we snap back, but not to how we were before. We have this permanent change or this set. It is uncomfortable, but that's the way it goes. Too many people, they have little stretches, they have a couple of kilos on, they go to the gym once or twice. One of the guys up in Luxembourg, he's not on the call, I'm not going to say his name, he decided to go on a health kick. Lisa, I need to send him your details. Anyway, got a health kick. So he went on a fruit juice only diet for 10 days. So for 10 days, all he could drink was water and fruit juice, which is, orange juice, apple juice, this sort of thing. That was it. No solids. And now what happened to him, do you think? Did he feel energized and happy and amazing through all the sort of thing? No, he felt rotten throughout the whole thing because he was doing it wrong. Well, I'm pretty sure that's not a good idea to go straight into a liquid-only fast for 10 days when you've been living on steak and chips for the previous 65 years. Not going to work. So, of course, the first thing he did when he finished his 10-day fast was went back to steak and chips. That was it. So no permanent change. It was uncomfortable, but it didn't make a change for him. You've got to build up to these things. Yeah, Anton, stop it. You can't have steak and chips or chips for that matter. But this is what happens. So when you're in business, you've got to be prepared to make this shift and become uncomfortable. And it's just one of those things. Doing what I do, I see this across every sector, pretty much everybody, including some people on the call. We've had the conversations on a Sunday morning when it's all like, oh, this has happened and what's going to this, oh, woe is me, it's all horrible and stuff like that. And then guess what? You get through it. You don't want to particularly do it again, but you get through it, you break through, you make the change, and you learn from it, and you're stronger for it, and away you go. So in terms of growing the business next year strategically, get prepared to be uncomfortable. And if that discomfort is investing in a better quality accountant or getting your terms and conditions sorted out by a decent lawyer or hiring the best people you can and taking the bit of the risk of payroll or getting someone to come and help you, then that's the discomfort. But if you don't do it, I guarantee you won't move forwards. If you do it, you're much more likely to have that level of a success. Now, when you get to this point, you're going to speak to your team and you're going to sell them the dream as well. And you're going to feel a bit stressed about this. So stress management for yourselves and your team is going to be really important. When we start looking at changing and growing and developing a business, it's going to be unusual. You can do different things, different strategies, different tactics, different ideas, different jobs and roles and functions. When when we all get inoculated with this amazing vaccine, all being well, are we going to go back to Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, clock in, clock out, 9 to 5, and away we go? I don't think so. I don't think we're going to do that. I think in a positive way, we're going to be working differently, more flexibly, more at home, remotely, more technology. I think that not maybe as it is now, but a flavor of to a certain extent. That's going to put people under stress because it's change. So from a leadership point of view and a self-leadership point of view, recognize the stress because this is going to be stressful on you. This stretch all sounds good fun, but it is going to be stressful. Now, how do you manage stress? Well, you've got to recognize it first. So this is a very simple way of demonstrating or measuring levels of stress. So let's say on the bottom is stress, performance on the vertical. So this is the curve and how it works. So we're here, that level of stress, that level of performance is the stress point number one. So we've got mid-level stress. Stress is reasonably high and performance is sort of, doing okay. Now, if I put more pressure on that person, then what's going to happen is they're going to move their stress level. The challenge is for the same level of stress, I could be over here at stress point 2. So it could be same level of stress, same level of performance, but a higher level of stress. And we can recognize that. You can sort of see, well, the two people working same level of output. Now, how you can test this out is if I put more stress or more pressure on the first person here, so more stress, performance goes up. That's good, excellent. Short term, it's okay. You do a few long nights, you put a pot of coffee on, you work the weekend, you get the proposal done. A little bit more stress equals higher performance. That's okay in the short term, not long term, but short term, that's okay. You're all right. And if that applies to you, you recognize it, then life is good. When you finish the project, you'll sort of snap back down again and keep the pace going. However, if you do that, apply this to the other person or you under a different situation, same level of performance, but a higher level of stress. If I or you put a bit more pressure on that person, more stress, then you're going to crash and burn. You're going to go straight down the other side of the slope. The challenge is, of course, we don't know what side of the curve you're on, and you don't know what side of the curve you're on for your team, for the team either. So when you're looking at this change, but you feel uncomfortable and uncertain about it, but so will your team. Now, the way through this is the same thing as applies to you guys. It's vision, it's certainty, it's clarity, it's communication. And if you see somebody who's under pressure, certainly given what we've been going through the last 6-7 months, if you put a bit more pressure onto somebody, some people respond well. They step up, they get on with it, life's good, away we go. Other people, you put a bit more pressure on them and they go, they explode. They have a hissy fit, they go sick, they wander off, they start headbutting the wall, and anyway, extreme. But they start to crash and burn. Now, the best thing, what you've got to do, be able to do for yourselves and for your team is reset that stress, get the stress off. And this could be, talking to people. It could be the vision. It could be the dream. It could be the goal. It could be time. It could be just having a conversation. But make sure you're de-stressing your people and yourselves as well. There's too many business owners out there that apply all this stress to themselves and they don't stop. Have the weekend off. Have the Friday off. When was the last time you went out for dinner, or maybe now got a takeaway, with your partner and didn't have your mobile phone on the table with you? When was the last time that you took the day off and went for a walk in the forest with the dog? If you want a beagle to take with you, I've got one, the needy beagle, you can take this one. But take time out to reset back. Sometimes just a walk in the woods can do it, just a walk around the park or something like that. Don't turn to alcohol and don't turn to caffeine and don't turn to anything else. These things don't work. I mean, it's okay to have a glass of wine now and again, but if you find you're treating your stress with alcohol, not a good thing. That's not your personal experience, but not a good thing. It doesn't help. Your sleep patterns change and it amplifies it and you get more stressed as you go along. But get prepared to reset. This is going to be uncomfortable for you and for your team. Now, in terms of leadership, by the way, any questions, please type them in. We're coming down towards the leadership part now, but any other questions, just type them in. But it's really this stress management is key. Now, how can you, from a strategic point of view and leadership, how can you lead your people through this, lead your team through this? And a book I'd like to recommend to you is Reinventing Organizations. I think some people have read it or they've had it maybe from me, they've gone through it, this sort of thing. But it's an interesting take on structuring organizations and leadership. And it's a great framework to use in any business, whether you're in the martial arts business or the accounting business or the franchise business. It doesn't matter what you're in. This book and this structure can give you some ideas from a strategic point of view, how to lead your people through it to reduce the stress and bring greater certainty. And right now, through this COVID lockdown, even more applicable. It really applies in a variety of sectors. So this is a very quick overview of the book, but you can have a look at it. I've got a video I can send you, and that's, you don't really need the book, you need the video. But what they describe, or what Frederic Laloux describes, is different colors of organization. So starts off with red being power and fear. Typically, gangs and cults operate in this way, single figureheads, and it's all to do with fear. Now, some organizations operate this way as well. And I've been to meetings with certain companies who will remain nameless, and I'm sitting there with, the team, wherever it is, and Genghis Khan walks in the front, otherwise known as a CEO, and just barks at people, causes a lot of stress and chaos, and walks out. That's red, power and fear. It's all to do with politics and position, and it's pretty horrible. So that's a structure. Some organizations work that way, and not many get through it, but gangs and cults work that way. Amber, hierarchy and stability, much more structured. Everybody knows their place, typically the military type approaches. But some franchises work like this as well. Nobody on the call, I'm sure. But some franchises work like this, where everybody's got status and position and rewards and badges on the shoulder, all this type of thing. Very, very hierarchical, very, very strict. And it's a method. It can work. It tends to work in sort of local authority, government departments and councils. They love all this structure and framework. And trying to get we bought a trailer. We were doing our moving house. We bought a trailer from Germany, which is 10 minutes across the border. Went to Germany, bought a trailer to take all the junk down to the tip. And we had to, because we live in France, we had to get that trailer registered in France with its own number plate and its own carte grise. It's a registration document. And we thought that'll be easy because it's a German, it's just across the border. You can see the shop from the French border. It's that close. I bought the trailer. You would not believe, well, Sandrine and Stefan would believe, I'm sure, the paperwork involved to get this trailer that was made in Germany registered in France. We had to get certificates of conformity. We had to get written guarantees. We had to get an invoice signed by the Pope. We had to give blood samples. We had to get an import certificate. It was a horrific. And it's just going through this hierarchical structure of, it is the joys of the EU. Yeah, rock on. Anyway, so hierarchy and stability. Now, you probably don't want that in your organization. Now, profit and competition, this is what the big corporates now do. It's all about intercompany profitability, departmental profitability, competition, and all this type of thing. Large organizations still operate like this in this orange situation. Now, we don't operate like that. We're smaller businesses. The gap for us in terms of agility and performance and added value, we can go between the cracks. We can beat any of the big companies out there. We can beat them easy because we don't think in terms of this corporate structure, but a lot of them do. So you can look at that as well. And in terms of green, this is where you have the service and values. Typically Starbucks, the more service oriented companies where they're more about customer service and focus and values, and they really focus on the customer, focus on their team. They have a company song and a company flag, and it's all very, very exciting. That's the green level. And also, but the top one is, and the one not necessarily to aim for, but to consider, is teal, where you have the organization is developed through purpose and vision and passion, empowerment of the team, and they therefore do a great job for the customers. But it's more internal focused, for the team centric. There's a fabulous video that I'll send across with the notes about a company in the US, Morningstar. They're a tomato, I guess you call it in America, processing company, and they just do amazing things. But they have no bosses. There's no bosses at Morningstar. They are like a collective. and they all collaborate, they all work with each other. There's no peer groups, there's no hierarchy. It's really wow. Now, when you're looking at creating this new brave new world, no, not the Daily Rag. Anyway, when you look at this brave new world of strategic choices and leadership coming out of the COVID, part of it's going to have to be, how do you treat yourselves and how do you treat your people as well? And part of it's got to be not just a marketing strategy, but a leadership strategy as well. How will you treat your people? And I was speaking to somebody again this morning, and I still feel this way now. It's very odd that, you know, we run our company on teal, like a teal line. So as you know, we run the business, it's three days a week, and the other 2 days are for workshops and seminars and planning and this sort of thing. Or sometimes we might just take the day off, take the Friday off. And even now, it feels, if I'm on a Monday morning, last Monday just gone, Monday morning, I think we had a conversation in the afternoon to have, which was fine, and the morning was clear. So we jumped in the truck, went down to the DIY store and bought I think it was the tiles and the wallpaper for the cottage. And we're in the DIY store on a Monday morning at 10 o'clock. It is absolutely empty. There's nobody there at all, just us. That's it. And walking around thinking, God, I feel quite guilty doing this. We should be in the office doing this 9 to 5 mentality that we've all been, you know, indoctrinated with. Doesn't apply. It certainly doesn't apply to you guys. It doesn't apply to your people and your teams either. So to make this strategic shift, we may have to have, you know, a business plan, a marketing strategy, product strategy, but also a leadership and a people strategy as well. Can your people decide how they want to work? Can they, you know, are you going to manage them on inputs of hours or outputs of value and work? It's a transitional thing to look at, but fabulous book. I recommend it. Too much to go through in a lot of detail here, but from a strategic point of view, very, very thought provoking. And does Lynn agree? You're till no. Lynn, I agree. I work in red. Lynn tells me I work in teal. There, you're quite right. But again, a good point that, yeah, we need a bit of all of it. You know, we need a bit of teal, we need a bit of amber now and again, need a bit of red now and something. The back's against the wall, and you're going to come out fighting. We need a little bit of all of it, but teal is the objective. And of course, as Lynn will tell you, I am the perfect person to work alongside, perfectly balanced, emotional. Did you hear that noise in the background? Did you hear that laughter coming from the next office? I'm going to be in trouble in a minute anyway, but still, she's coming in now, I'm in trouble. Anyway, but it's a principle. It's a free, people expect this. If you want to hire and recruit the best people to you, we're going to have an HR policy strategy that suits their needs and wants in terms of flexibility, responsibility, and independence. We're just going to have that. So consider that and build it in as you go along. So in terms of leadership, now if you look at, I was thinking, what can we talk about in terms of leadership? There are so many books on leadership. It is unbelievable, and they're all different. They're all totally different. So what I've attempted to do is boil them all down into, it's a very simple little checklist. It's a separate sort of conversation to a degree. But first job of leadership, number one, is leadership of yourself. You've got to have yourself, your life, your business, your bank account, your relationships under control, where you want them to be. You've got to lead yourself first in order for you to lead other people. If your life is absolute chaos, well, they're not going to follow you anyway. So you have to have leadership of self. Your situation first is number one. Then for your stakeholders in the business, it could be shareholders in the business, it could be your employees, it could be your partner, your stakeholders or clients or customers, whatever it is. It could be the banks, people you maybe borrowed money from. Leadership for them, they expect you to lead the business through as well. Leadership for the team. What does that look like? Are you a good leader? Are you going to sell them the vision? Are they going to buy into it? Now, when you make all these changes, of course, and you have this open approach to it, some people won't like it. Some people need and want the regular framework, want 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. That's their comfort zone. They need that. They want it. That's got to be okay for them as well. Other people may want to work 2 days from home, 3 days in the office, start at 6 in the morning, finish at 2 o'clock, go to the gym, do this, do that. Is that okay? Well, yeah, providing the output is right, then it's sort of got to be okay. Providing the team agree it between themselves, it's got to be okay. But they can agree it, but this is part of the risk that we take of changing the structure and the fabric of the organization, leading our team through it. if you want an amazing 21st century organization, we can't manage people as they were managed in the mills of the 17th, 18th century. We can't do that. We've got to have a different approach to it. All the labor laws and regulations all came out of in the industrial age, the industrial revolution, factories, mills, working 9 to 5. It's ridiculous. It's insane. Technology now means we don't need to do that. We can think and operate differently because we've been educated, stroke indoctrinated with it. We don't, but it's a great opportunity for all of us to think, how can we adapt and lead our people through it, our team through it? And also, how can you lead your clients as well? How can you lead them in terms of the products and services and added value you can do for them? How are you going to lead them through? Because if you're going to change the structure of the organization, you've got to let them in on it as well. They're going to know what's going on. They'll be comfortable with it. And the products and the value offer has got to be unique and consistently high as well. And I tell people, I tell everybody pretty much what we do in our business, whether we're doing a new venture, we're doing which won't affect what we do here. New venture, that's all kicking off, which is fantastic. We've got the house we're doing, got a needy beagle. I let them know. I'm very open with what we do because I want people to know what we're up to and participate in it. It's part of our journey, and everybody that we are working with are on the journey with us. It's all part of the same process. Part of the joy of what I do, of course, is I've got to be seen or got to be able to progress and grow and develop to keep up with the people we work with as well, which is a nice positive pressure to have. But the leadership, loads of information there, but you have to have this clarity and certainty for yourselves, and then for those other people that are engaged with the business, for your stakeholders, for your team and your clients, but most of all yourself. You've got to take yourself through this and learn from it, grow from it, and develop from it as you go along. So okay, so it's now 3:30, 2:30 UK. Any questions? I'm going to go into the final breakout, and the question part, this really for you as a group, as a team, for the last sort of 15, maybe 20 minutes, is just consider what does next year look like, and how are you going to get this level of certainty? How are you going to get this dissatisfaction, the vision, and the certainty? Where are you going to get it from? How are you going to build that? Because the only thing that holds us back, pretty much, is certainty. If there's a famous phrase or saying, if you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? Well, you'd do anything, wouldn't you? You'd do all sorts of things. You knew you couldn't fail, you'd do anything you like. What we're looking at and what we're insulating you from is building up that, or reducing that fear or uncertainty and failure. If you can have more certainty that all things are possible, what would you do? A lot more, maybe faster, bigger, brighter, better. So it's how will you overcome that uncertainty that will enable you to bring everything else to life? Who do you need to talk to? Who's your accountant? Who's your lawyer? Who's the best team you got, or your team people around you? Who's your coach? Who are you going to bring into the organization? Who do you need to speak to bring that level of certainty? What's your strategy going to be? Just maybe compare notes, if that's okay. All right. So I mentioned it's a question on the text, which is great. So you mentioned HR policy of flexibility, responsibility. What else was it? I think I've forgotten, to being perfectly blunt, because I make this thing up as I go along. But no, it's certainly flexibility, responsibility, and also it's the creativity, independence. Yes, thank you, Sandrine. But and also the control. Because if you give some degree of control to people, they choose, rather than saying to people, okay, guess what? You're working from home 3 days a week. You're in the office 2 days a week. That's not freedom. If they choose it, they have control over it, or they feel they have control over it. It's much more powerful. So really, it's empowerment, I think, is one of the key ones as well. But people will, after this COVID situation, it's just my observation and take on it. I did a fabulous podcasting with a lady called Virginie Boyard, and her business partner Gerard Zins up in Luxembourg, talking about this sort of thing. They're HR professionals and looking at flexibility. There's an expectation now that people want to choose how they work, to a certain extent. So flexibility, freedom, bit of autonomy. Now, the trick is this all sounds great, but some people don't want it. Some people need, just be aware, they need and want to be told, here's your framework, go away and do this, come back when you're finished. Some people do want that. Don't just take the brakes off completely and go, it's not a kibbutz, for goodness sake, but have the conversation, allow them to make some decisions. If they decide they want to work in the office 9 to 5, great. They want to work from 6 in the morning till 10, and then from 2 till 6 in the evening, and have midday off to go to the pub, well, the gym, then great. But it's that degree of flexibility, I think, is what I was referring to. So, okay, so I hope that and AD there. Interesting. None of my staff want to work from home ever. They say, apparently they miss me. I probably an offline conversation to have, but maybe they do miss you. Maybe they do miss you. Maybe they do. I'm not saying anything. Maybe, but there is a thing. They're working from home and remotely. The one thing that is missing, or several things that are missing, that's been identified in groups and teams now, is that sociability. Because some people, their environment at home isn't very conducive to work, or they're sat in their back bedroom by themselves. They don't want to be sat there. They want to be in the office with Anton, clearly, but with their teammates as well. And it's absolutely, absolutely okay to be in the office. But they choose. When people have choice, the stress reduces. People will choose to do amazing things and they don't feel the stress. Same for you guys. When you choose, make a positive choice to do something, it's not stressful because you chose it and away you go. Same for your team. DPT delivery drivers work from home mostly. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Okay, so before we get into the discussion over here with Anton being missed in his office, because I'm sure he is. Any other questions? I mean, it's all good. This is great. Obviously, we're all talking anyway, so you can catch up with me as we go along. They live in the vans. Yes, they do. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up by going to the final slide, only for the recording, and then we're going to breakout groups, then we'll come back in, have a chat, and then we can wrap it up. So for those who are not participating in the call, Marie, thank you. Excellent. I know you could disappear. See you tomorrow for the wine quiz. Excellent. For those who weren't participating in the call but seeing this as a maybe recording, this was session 2 of the 2021 planning workshop. Session 3 is next week on Thursday, same time, same channel, and we're looking at the final area about planning, putting it into place, 90-day plans, structures and budgets and forecasts, bringing it all to life. If you want to find more information about what we do, just check out our website, resultsrulesok.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm always easy to find and happy to have a conversation. So I hope you enjoyed the workshop. You're with me. We're going to go into breakout rooms in the session, so don't disappear just yet. I'm going to stop recording and invite you through to the breakout rooms. But for those watching on YouTube, thanks for now. Hope you liked it. Make some comments below, and I'll speak to you soon, and bye for now.